Rod, this just in, there are reports that our population today, the population of this country got bigger by 428. 428 Channel migrants were brought in to Dover by the Border Force water taxi service. That means that 7,000 small boat migrants have come across the Channel illegally this year. So it's all going swimmingly well. Before we move on to our friend Crazy Ed Miliband and indeed David Lammy, can I ask you a couple of questions about Donald Trump? Donald Trump has just banned his staff from dating anyone Chinese. And also there are reports, Zelensky is claiming that I think it's 6 Chinese soldiers have been fighting with the Russians inside of Ukraine. Which do you think is more newsworthy?
The first one, mate, easily. Easily. And it's a real problem for Trump supporters over here.
Yeah.
Especially young men. You know, nearly all the young guys I know, including my sons, originally went out with Chinese girls because they didn't stand for any of this woke rubbish. And if they're now finding out that you know they shouldn't be with it's gonna have to be Russians, you know.
Yeah.
They won't consort with British women of their own age anymore because they're absolutely ghastly. Whereas the Chinese are illiberal, old-fashioned, conservative, and also, this is an awful thing to say on your programme, quite fit. So this is a problem. I'm trying to speak.
You should see my producer at the moment. She's getting very nervous.
Is she looking cross?
No, nervous. I would say that would be nervous. How I would characterise her at the moment.
There were an awful. It seems to be very, very courant for young men in London who are British blokes to find their girlfriends outside the milieu that they would normally do, you know, at university and so on, and in pubs and clubs with a British girl, because they're all pansexual, bisexual, or whatever, you know, and they're having none of it, mate.
Yeah. So no more Chinese dating for the White House staff. Let's come back across the Atlantic to home territory now and talk, as we said before the break, about David Lammy. You wrote, now David Lammy has ploughed through £1.2 million worth of first and business class flights and private jets in 3 expensive months between October and December. And you point out that you don't really have a problem with. I'm kind of with you, because his job entails a lot of travel.
He's a foreign secretary.
Yeah, I don't want our foreign secretary arriving in foreign climes, you know, completely knackered after being squeezed into the back of an EasyJet plane.
No, exactly.
But what I do object to is the globe-trotting speaker Lindsay Hoyle's extraordinary £250,000 worth of all expenses paid luxury travel. And we're learning now, Rod, that Miliband's, mad Miliband's, Crazy Ed's net zero goons have racked up in just a few months £40,000 between July and December. £40,000 worth of domestic flights around Britain. Now, you know, again, I would accept these people have to travel around, but at home, in the interests of saving the planet, couldn't they let the train take the strain?
They should let the train take the strain, and if I were Ed Miliband, I'd resign over that, frankly. I think that is a resignation issue. Here is a man who is trying to force the lowest paid people in our country to pay more for their fuel, much, much more for their fuel, to buy new boilers, to buy new cars, to do all these things which he thinks will save the planet and which actually won't save the planet. And yet he is jetting across the country with his idiot advisors. It doesn't apply to him. You know, I mean, he looks more every day like Wallace from Wallace.
He really does. He really does.
But this really is a resignation issue, and it should be a resignation issue, because he's trying to stop us using transport in a way which damages the environment. We should be conscious, and I'm conscious when I use transport. I don't want to damage the environment, you know. I take the train nearly all the time. I think it would be absurd of me to fly down from Newcastle to London.
Of course, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Uh, and they should do the same thing. And never mind arguing, well, we needed to get there quickly. Right, then improve the bloody train services then. Because they can't have it all ways. I genuinely think that is a resignation issue.
Yeah, he himself chalked up in the first 5 months of Labour's dreaded government after July, 23,000 air miles himself.
Yeah.
But as I just said, from July until December, his goons, people who work for the net zero department, actually spent, I've got the exact figure here, £43,644 flying around Britain. You're right. Even I, sometimes, when I'm tempted to fly to Manchester, I just think, you know what, even I think that's a bit wrong. I'll get the train.
Of course it's wrong.
Why aren't these people thinking like that?
As I say, it should be a resignation issue. There should be an edict in his department. You go by train, or bike if it's nearby. You do what we're trying to tell the rest of the country to do. I think it's absolutely shocking. And just wait until another COP occurs. They'll all be out there on their private jets, flying in.
So don't you love that? That's COP. What's it? COP 30? Is it in Brazil? And they're annihilating great swathes of the rainforest to build a motorway so they can get from the airport to the COP event. Unbelievable.
It would be very interesting for a young journalist, if there was a young journalist watching, add up what damage COPs have done to the environment since the very first one. Just add up all the air miles and everything. The trees ripped out in, where was it? Was it Torquay or somewhere? It was somewhere in Cornwall, I think. They ripped all the trees down.
Plymouth, they did that in Plymouth. Yeah, that's that council vandalism. It's a new syndrome, another extraordinary development in Britain's modern history. What are you going to lead on this week, Rod, do you reckon?
Well, I'm talking about freedom of speech and the abortion safe access law, which I think is being abused and is really being abused in the most hilarious manner north of the border in that land of methadone, corruption and lies. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but the Green MSP who introduced the bill, Mackay, her name is, actually called J.D. Vance an Egypt for suggesting that she was going to stop people praying in their own homes, and then admitted on a TV interview that it might be illegal for people to pray in their own homes, depending upon whom was walking past the window.
Scotland, I mean, the whole country is a basket case, but Scotland, like, God knows what's going on up there.
Well, and Wales, you could add Wales into the mix.
Oh my God, I forgot about Wales, but then again, I always try to forget about Wales.
I think I might take a lead from your book, mate, and do Miliband and his flights. You see, what I think what it is that those civil servants are living in the real world. We need to be there at a certain time, so we'll get there whatever happens. But we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, we're not allowed. Absolutely, that's worth a mention.
We live in his world of unicorns and elves. And we have to...
Don't forget, Rod, you've got to mention also, if you can find the space, because Lindsay Hoyle, let me tell you, just up Hoyle. But did you see when yet again he tried to justify his luxury global travel, staying in expensive hotels, spending thousands on chauffeur-driven limos in Los Angeles, Australia, the Cayman Islands, having £300 meals, even hiring a private jet in Montserrat. He justified it by saying it's important that I travel the globe speaking truth to power. Is that what you call it?
It was magnificent, and he gets very, very chippy about all this. And I covered this on my radio show on Times Radio, and his office were ringing up saying, "You don't know what Lindsay's job is like, and he must do this." rubbish.
Yeah, I've had the same problem with his office, but they've gone quite quiet now because I think they've realised they're fighting a losing battle. The only person in that office who hasn't realised he's hopelessly lost this battle is Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who keeps explaining, no, you don't understand. He said, when they have a G7 or a G20, they also have conferences of the speakers of the parliaments. How would it look if Britain wasn't represented at them? Well, let me tell you, Lindsay, no one would give a flying toss whether you're there or not, right?
Well, I beg to differ there, Kevin, because I've always thought it very, very important that Britain strike up the greatest possible close relationship with the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to Lindsay's next fact-finding trip to somewhere glamorous with palm trees. I guarantee you that. He never goes to Belgium or Siberia. Rod, Rod, got to go. I look forward to your columns and your Times radio show Saturday morning at 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Thanks very much, mate.